Hello everybody and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Music Weekly, the show where I give you guys the top 5 prog headlines for the week, give you guys some new singles to check out, and tell you what's going on with the channel so you guys can stay updated with what's going on Nathan on Shuffle. It's August 11th, 2023. At the top of the show, I want to apologize for not being here last week. I was celebrating my birthday, so I decided to put a pause on the shows for a little bit to celebrate and to do some other things for that weekend, but I'm back now, should be solid for the next foreseeable future, so you should have good shows coming in the pipeline. So thank you guys for being understanding, and hopefully you'll enjoy this episode, which, a bit of a catch-up, it's a little bit of a smattering of news from the last 2 weeks, so you'll hear some older items that maybe to you is older news, but I wanted to make sure to cover it on the channel in some fashion for those who may not have heard about it. So first, I always like to talk about the new releases, and there's one major one this weekend that I wanted to be sure to highlight. That's the new Neal Morse record, The Dreamer, Joseph Part 1. A bit of an expansive concept album, rock opera, musical, all those things could be described maybe in the style of Jesus Christ the Exorcist that came out a while back, but more leaning into the prog rock concept album style like Sola Gratia that he did a few years ago also. So I've been really enjoying it. I'm going to be giving a full review this week that I'm really excited to put out there as the resident biggest Neal fan on YouTube, I'd say. It's just been a joy to listen to it, and I can't wait to talk about it in full. So I don't want to give too much away now, but it's a great concept album about, the Joseph biblical story, the Technicolor Dreamcoat, all of that stuff. And it's part 1, part 2 coming next year, presumably sometime early next year. So should be a fun time to talk about that one. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you like Neal Morse and that style of prog, the modern symphonic prog, concept albums, all of that. It's just right up your alley if you like that stuff like I do. And then the other maybe a little bit more obscure release today that I'm interested in is Hemina and the album Romancing the Ether. This is a progressive metal band from Australia. It's a fairly short album. It's like a 35-minute long single song, but I've heard a lot of praise for it, and a lot of people are really enjoying that one, so I wanted to give it the mention. I haven't quite listened to it in full yet, but it's definitely in my queue to listen to shortly, so excited about that one. So please let me know in the comments any other new releases. I'm sure there's many others that many of you enjoy that you could mention in the comments and let us all know about them. So item number 2, this is one of those items that I definitely would have talked about last week, so it's a little bit older, but Big Train signs with InsideOutMusic, a really big deal for them, and I'm super excited because InsideOutMusic to me is the premier progressive rock label. It contains most of my favorite current modern prog bands, so I'm excited to see them on that roster. And it should just mean that they have a lot of promotional tools at their disposal, and it just shows good signs that the band's strong and has a strong future ahead of them. It looks like they're working on a new studio album that should be expected in spring 2024, the first official studio album with their new singer Alberto Bravin, of course replacing the David Lungden, who was the former vocalist who unfortunately passed away, I believe a couple years ago now. But the band is continuing onward. They released a great release this year called Ingenious Devices, which I did a review of. Really a reworking of some of their classic big epic pieces, which just really flows well and is an incredible piece of work. And it seems like their prior catalog is going to remain on their older personal label that they have. And it sounds like there might be somewhat of a reissue campaign. That label is called English Electric Recordings. So another exciting piece of this is that there's reissues possibly in the works for some of those classic Big Train albums, which is really exciting to me because there's certain ones that I just never was able to pick up on vinyl, and I'm excited at the prospect that maybe they'll be reissued in this campaign. So really should be a fun pairing and a great marriage of an incredible prog rock band with an incredible prog rock label, and it should be fun to see them. They're doing a bunch of touring as well, through August and September. They're going to be on Cruise to the Edge next year, which should coincide pretty closely, I'm guessing, with when their new album might be released, or at least have a single or something available for it that they might play on the cruise. So I'm excited for that as well. So really cool news for Big Big Train, and I'm excited to see where they progress from here. It's been quite a journey already. Item number 3, I wanted to mention the group Unitopia. Progressive fusion ensemble Unitopia announced new studio album, 7 Chambers. Unitopia is a band that I've followed for quite a long time. I really loved their album The Garden, which came out in somewhere in the early 2000s, I want to say, or mid to early 2000s. So a really great double album, really cool progressive rock that I really enjoy. But unfortunately, after their second album, they split up for whatever reason and went off to form different groups. Really, United Progressive Fraternity came out of that, as well as Southern Empire, which both coincidentally have albums coming out. United Progressive Fraternity's album just came out recently, and Southern Empire's album is coming out next month. So a lot of activity from this family of musicians. But there's also also a new studio album from Unitopia proper called 7 Chambers, featuring Mark Truiak, vocalist, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist Sean Timms as well. They're kind of the duo that started Unitopia back in 1996. And so this new album will be coming out on August 25th. So a really exciting new project, and should be cool. And it's coming up very shortly. So they announced it, and it's coming up in just a few weeks. So it's a big, sprawling album, just over 80 minutes long. So there's a lot of material. They are really excited about it. They added some really interesting members to their lineup. Joining them is Steve Unruh, who's been somewhat of a maestro in these more obscure prog circles. He's played with tons of different people. Been part of the United Progressive Fraternity also. Guitarist Dr. John Greenwood, drummer Chester Thompson, who's a notable figure who's played with Genesis, Frank Zappa, Weather Report, and also bassist Alfonso Johnson, who has played around the block as well with groups like Weather Report and Santana, and played with David Gilmour. So really notable figures coming into this group, and it should be a really cool project to check out. So I wanted to mention it here. It's up for pre-orders on various sites. You can go check it out for yourself, and it should be a fun one that I'm certain I'll talk about on the channel. So number 4, we have Earthside returning back with a new album after 8 years since their previous. Earthside are somewhat of a cinematic prog metal group. They do these really expansive pieces and bring on a whole host of guests on their work, and this album seems like it's been in the works for quite a while. They had a single come out with Leprous drummer Bard Kolstad. I want to say it was like a year ago or something, but they now have a new single out, which is this really expansive piece of progressive metal featuring Tesseract singer Daniel Tompkins and Russian singer Gennady Shazinko-Popits. It's a really cool track. It's definitely going to be featured in my prog singles list, and has made me excited for this new album, which is coming out November 17th, called Let the Truth Speak, coming out through Music Theory's recordings. So that should be a really cool time if you're into the heavy side, the progressive metal, but with a little bit of a cinematic touchstone, a lot of really intense musical moments, and some interesting guests on the project. A Dream in Static is their prior album, which I really loved. I think it's one of the premier albums of this style in the last 10 years. So just something I wanted to make sure to mention and let you guys know about if you're into that. And then on my final item on the list proper here is This Winter Machine signing a new deal for their 4th album. These are UK melodic prog rockers who've signed this record deal with White Knight Records, and releasing their new album The Clockwork Man on October 6th. So about 2 months away for that release. It sounds like it's a cool concept album. It covers issues such as personal identity, bigotry, and freedom of choice, wrapped up in a story about cloning and identity. There's a video out for one of the tracks on it, The River Part 1. And it's a bit of a new lineup as well for the group, featuring Lee Perkins on keyboards and backing vocals, John Cook on guitar, Dave Close on bass, Alan Wilson on drums, and Al Winter on vocals. So should be a cool project to check out if you're into that melodic prog and what they have on offer. A lot of people really like what they've been doing lately, so this should be another great album in their arsenal. So excited to bring that one up. But I have an expanded prog singles list, so there's still a lot of content here. So a lot of the news items are kind of wrapped up in a lot of these singles, so I wanted to get into that. So if you feel like I missed some important things, let's keep going on with some cool prog singles. So first on my prog singles list is Trevor Rabin's new track, Big Mistakes, from his upcoming album Rio, which releases on October 6th. A really cool song, just really well crafted, great melodies. It's really catchy and fun, just like you'd expect from the 80s Trevor Rabin material. Of course, I'm most familiar with what he did with Yes during that time frame in the 80s and early 90s, and it just sounds really incredible. So I'm excited to see what we can expect on the album as a whole. I believe this is his first vocal-led album in quite some time. He's done a lot of instrumental work, apparently, over the years, but this is his first solo album of vocal material in 34 years, and it's being released on Inside Out. So check out that single. It's really, really great. It's been out for a little while now, for a week or so many of you have probably heard it by now, but just wanted to put it out there. As I mentioned in the Prog headlines list proper, I have Earthside's single, Let the Truth Speak. Incredible progressive rock epic piece. Definitely recommended that you look at that piece. Don't want to miss out on Southern Empire and their new track, Hold On To Me. I'm super excited for their album Another World, coming out September 4th. This is the second track that they've released from it, and it's a really beautiful track that focuses on, I believe it's their guitarist, Cam Blokeland, who wrote this track, and he sings it as well, and it's just a beautiful ballad, and when the band kind of bursts into it, it just puts it onto another level. So beautiful track, well-written song, a highlight for them, I'm certain. The Flower Kings have a new single out, The Dream, which is going to be on their upcoming album, Look at You Now, which comes out September 8th on Inside Out Records. I'll be reviewing that one certainly when it's approaching a little bit sooner. That's about a month away. I mentioned This Winter Machine and their track, The River, Part 1. Check that out as well. Nine Skies released a track called The Dreamer. These are French prog rockers. I reviewed their previous album. This is another beautiful track. They just have such a cool, dreamy quality. It's just beautifully crafted, great ballad, great guitar work, great singing from, I believe, the singer on this one is Martin Wilson. So great list of guests on this album that's upcoming that this is from. The album's going to be called The Lightmaker, which will release on September 18th. I believe it's a concept album, but it's going to be really cool, and I'm excited about it. And it has a lot of cool guests: John Mitchell, Marco Miniman, Adam Holzman, Christopher Gildenlow, and Ricardo Romano. So a great host of notable figures, and it should be a really cool release to cover. Molly Barron has a track called Breakdown that I'm putting on the list. This is more of an alternative rock, metal, maybe not quite super proggy, but it's coming out on Inside Out Records, so I thought I'd include it in the list, and it's really well done. Really cool little track. Their new album is going to be coming out September 15th called Something Ominous, so that should be a really interesting one to check out. They're a little bit darker, a little bit heavier, but some catchy melodies still in their style, and some pop tinges to their heavier track. French-Irish band, so they have a really eclectic style and have some different influences. And I'm really loving this track from Downs Braid Association called Keep On Moving. Just a beautiful, well-written, just pleasant song to listen to. I really loved it. They have an album coming out also called Celestial Songs, releasing on September 8th. So a lot of new albums coming out. So these singles are a good representation of all that's coming out shortly. Just a beautiful track. Of course, it's a collaboration from Jeff Downs and Chris Braid, and it just sounds fantastic. So I want to point your attention towards that. Veering into a little bit of a different territory, the Mommy Heads have a track called Why Aren't You Smiling? This is more of a power pop band, but a lot of prog fans like this kind of music. Think Jellyfish and that ilk. Just a really infectious, cool, catchy track. Maybe a bit of a darker tinge, but it's really interesting. They have a new album coming out also on September 19th called Coney Island Kid, which I believe they've said is a concept album also. So they had a really cool album I believe it was last year, called Genius Killer, that I really enjoyed. So I'm excited to follow them and see where they're going with this more pop-centric sound that harkens back to kind of a classic era like the Beatles and Beach Boys, but done in a modern style. I could hear shades of, like I said, Jellyfish, and even more modern groups like Radiohead and things like that. So really interesting. And then the final track of my expanded list here, Mandoki Soulmates and Devil's Encyclopedia, which is a cool little sneak peek to their upcoming album that'll come out next year, as well as their 30-year anniversary tour. There's a lot of flute work on this. I believe Ian Anderson's involved, as well as Jesse Seibenberg and Tony Carey, along with bandleader Leslie Mandoki, fusion legend Mike Stern, and Richard Bona. Really a cool track, interesting to check out, relevant to our modern era, and should be something to enjoy. So those are the tracks that I have for you guys. Like I said, I didn't do any shows this past week, so I don't have much to report on of what has been on the channel recently. We were going to try to put out a Prog Song Sunday episode, but it just didn't work out with our timing. We decided to be better to not try to rush it and to just let it come out naturally this upcoming Sunday, but there'll definitely be one this Sunday, and we're covering a classic solo track from a Yes member. I think it could be a fun one for you guys to check out. The week prior to this last one, I did some really cool shows that I was really excited about. I talked about the Chronicles of Father Robin and their album, really big, sprawling, triple disc, big concept record. So for fans of Wobbler and the Norwegian prog scene in general, definitely check that out. It's a really wonderful project, and I recommend you guys check out the review. I also did a review of top 5 classic prog concept albums, which I really loved doing, and had a lot of great engagement, a lot of great comments on that one. And I'm doing the follow-up to it this week to tease a little bit of what's coming. I'm going to do the top 5 modern prog concept albums, and I'm excited to get into that and put together a list for that show. And I'm going to be doing a review, like I mentioned, of the new Neal Morse record. So it should be a pretty stacked week. I'm also considering, I'm going to be watching the virtual live stream of Morse Fest this weekend. So maybe I'll touch upon Morse Fest and how I feel about that. So there should be a lot of fun things ahead, and many, many great releases coming up, as you could probably surmise from the big prog singles list. So a lot of fun news in the prog world. Hopefully you guys are having fun out there. Sorry again that I wasn't around last weekend, but I'm here, I'm committed, and there should be New Music Friday shows for the next several Fridays/Saturdays coming up soon. So really excited to keep going with this. Hope you guys are having a great time and enjoying the prog out there, enjoying the music, whatever you're listening to. Let me know in the comments anything I've missed over the past 2 weeks, news-wise or singles-wise, and just have a great time out there. Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining me.